these men is a highly respected New York attorney, Lucas A. Ferrara. The other is a self-proclaimed man of the people, known as Mert Roberts. Their aim is to discuss the hottest issues impacting our city, state, and nation. Fasten your seatbelts. Shake it off with Mert and Lucas. Live starts now on AM 970. The Answer.
I love it, Alex. What a great way to start the show. What is the name of that one?
All right, we're talking Rebel Spirit by Alana Jordan tonight.
Yes. Let's talk about a rebel by the name of Hasan Piker. Now, you know that feeling, Mert, when someone's voice gets under your skin, not because they're boring, but because they're annoying and loud. Because every time they open their mouth, it feels like they're pouring gasoline on whatever fire is already burning in the country. That's Hasan Piker. Now, he's a Twitch Joe Rogan of the left. Millions of young people, especially young men, hang on every word he says for hours every day. And politicians are suddenly showing up next to him while a whole lot of other people look at the same guy and say, this man is full of pure, undiluted hate. Now we're going to sit with that for a while, but let's talk about the danger that this guy poses. All right, let's start with basics. He was born in Jersey. He was raised in Istanbul, where he spent his childhood and high school years. He returned to the U.S. around when he was 18 years of age. He went to the University of Miami before going to Rutgers. He's the nephew of Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. Hasan used to work there. The Young Turks, by the way, is best known as a major progressive left-wing online news and political commentary network. He left that and he built his own empire on Twitch. He streams for hours. Ready for this, Mert? Politics, news, video games, working out, yelling. He's got that look, the energy, the absolute refusal to moderate himself, and it works. A huge audience. We're talking millions. Young, progressive, male, often frustrated with the way traditional Democrats talk. But, Mert, he calls himself a socialist, an anti-imperialist, a Marxist. He says the quiet parts out loud, or at least the parts that used to stay quiet, and that's exactly why some people love him and why some people can't stand the sound of his voice. What do you think, Mert?
Well, I think that people are always looking for a new and refreshing voice. and you can tell by the work ethic, because anybody who gets famous on Twitch and all these streaming things, they put in a lot of time and effort. You know, sitting there for hours and hours and just giving people content isn't something easy. Now, No. When it comes to his politics, he's filling a void. You know, there's an aging population in our upper ranks in the Democrat and progressive parties. So there needs to be some new and refreshing individuals. After Obama left, we went right back to Biden, someone who's been around forever. And we tried to go with Kamala when Biden could no longer, remain fit and active and with it. But that didn't go too well because it was a rushed effort. We couldn't sell America on Kamala. So what do we do now? The progressive movement needs a new, refreshing young voice. So I see here that he's 6'4", white, got a head full of hair. If he's working out on stream, he's probably in good shape, probably a good-looking dude. Why not have this guy be a voice? Why not have this guy give something to the party or the movement that has been asking for?
Because it's divisive and dangerous. I mean,
it's not dangerous. You're being alarmist here. It's not dangerous. Let me tell you why it's not dangerous. Because it's all online. The dangerous stuff happens off camera.
He's going around the country campaigning for candidates, Mert.
He's taking it offline. That's the problem.
He's taking it all around the country. He's trying to get candidates who align with his leftist Marxist.
This is America. You're allowed to campaign for somebody. That's putting it out there in front of the camera.
To our friends,
when you're campaigning for somebody, you're doing it in front of the cameras. Everybody can see you out there. They say, "Hey, Hasan Piker's coming into town. He's campaigning for us."
I'm not following. The guy is a lefty, extreme lefty.
Well, hold on a second. You're not about to make supporting somebody a negative. If he supports that candidate and they invite him to attend the event,
then it's shame on them both, is my view, Mert. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's tainted. He's evil. He's anti-American. He hates
America.
And
you can't prove that. Oh, you're just going. This is all emotion right here.
No, it's not emotion.
Okay, let's start. Everybody else
Here's a quote. Okay, yeah. Okay, ready? Here's one of its quotes from August 2019. I can't say it all because it's obscene, but he said on one stream, "America deserved 9/11, dude. F it, I'm saying it." That's okay, Mert. America deserved 9/11. This is a good guy. This is a guy.
And I believe Mamdani appeared on his podcast.
Okay. He later walked it back. He said it was poorly worded, said he meant foreign policy, not the actual people who died. Really? Really? The words are very clear. America deserved 9/11. Okay? Even his uncle corrected him. But look, there's more. On another stream, ready for this? And I can't say it because he uses obscene language. "I hate this effing country so much. I hate these policies. I hate this administration. The country." You okay? You okay with that?
Listen, you can spin whatever kind of narrative you want to, but if the people who watch him consistently are sitting there and saying, "You know what? We get what he was trying to say." Because I don't care what side of the aisle you fall on, that you would ever sit there and say, "I support somebody saying this country deserved 9/11." So what you have is maybe it was taken out of context.
No,
I don't know. I didn't hear it in context. I didn't hear the soundbite myself, so I'm not going to address that because you can take a lot of what people say.
Just because you didn't hear it doesn't mean he didn't say it.
You can take a lot of what people say
he said
and slant it in a negative direction, and that happens all the time to both sides. So I see people do it to Trump where they'll take something he say and spin it a certain way.
He called Hamas 1,000 times better than the fascist settler colonial apartheid state, and of course he was referring to Israel. Shame on him. Hamas 1,000 times better is what he said, Mert. This guy's a Looney Tune. He made a comment about Jewish people and Zionists that a lot of people on the left view as anti-Semitic. He has a long history of treating entire groups, Israelis, Jews, anyone who supports Israel, police, landlords. He hates landlords. He dislikes conservatives as moral enemies. He views others. Let me finish, and then you can chime in. He views his opponents as moral enemies rather than fellow citizens with different views. What kind of guy is that you're aligning with, Mert? This guy is bad.
Well, hold on a second. I don't get why you're the one who thinks you should be saying this. If there aren't liberals who are saying this,
a lot of people are out there saying this.
If it isn't liberals pushing for the end of this individual, then it's not going to be effective, because what you're doing is you're speaking to an audience who agrees with you already. And you can have the most sanitized and clean and down the middle and buttoned up Democrat, and they would still disagree with them because you support the MAGA movement. That's what you're all about. That's you right there. That's you. Lucas is a MAGA supporter. So whatever Democrat is against you, you are going to go against them. So what you're doing right now,
I like Superman. Truth, justice, and the American way. This guy is evil. Do you have any comment about this, Alex?
You're the wrong messenger. Let me say this. You're the wrong messenger because You would say that about
you're
Obama.
The right one, and you're the
yes,
right one.
You would. I am the right one. You would say that about any Democratic candidate,
no,
figurehead.
No. Even the Democrats don't like him. James Carville, the respected Democratic strategist, was on Fox News earlier today, Mert, and he basically said that if Hasan Piker gets more power in the Democratic Party, he said, quote, "I'm out of here." Basically, he said, one of us is going to leave. It might be me. He's causing respected people.
So did you agree with him when he said Trump should be impeached and all that type of stuff? Did you agree with that?
That's his opinion. I don't think we should waste time impeaching people. I think it's a
So you didn't agree with him on that, but you agree with him on this. So
but
you'll
I think
pick and
he's
choose.
Right on this. Of course I
so
pick
you'll
and
pick
choose.
and choose. So
Since
I don't know why you're
I'm
using
not a
this.
robot. I don't parrot what people say. I agree with
I get
agree.
that, but you're trying to make it seem like...
I agree with some of the things that you say, and I also disagree. It happens I disagree a lot more than I agree with you, and I certainly disagree with you about this because you're showing a real lefty communist side.
This is what I'm seeing from you. You're not consistent. You are very opportunist, and you will pick and choose, which makes you very dangerous because you will pick and choose when to agree with somebody and when not to, and it's very dangerous.
That's right.
It's very dangerous when it comes to politics because if you hate this guy's opinion when it comes to Trump, but all of a sudden he says something you can support, that means you're easy to be bought and paid for. That means you can be...
Wow, that's extreme. James Carville is highly respected. He's been in the Democratic Party for decades.
I've never heard you reference James Carville on anything he said against the other side. So this is not somebody you treat as a voice that you respect and that you go to frequently. This is somebody that you're seeing an opportunity to latch on. So I do not care what he said, and all of a sudden you want to be a big fan of James Carville when you've never once been a big supporter of his voice.
I'm saying even James Carville says he won't stay in the Democratic Party if this guy, Hasan, continues to rise. Those are pretty powerful words. Come on, Alex, help me out.
All right, so here's where I think the confusion is sort of lying here. Mert, if he's adopted by progressive politicians, doesn't that bother you? If he was totally doing this without any affiliation to any political party, then that's free speech.
That's free speech, that's right.
But now he's being co-opted into the party. That's the problem here.
You guys just conflated two things. You guys just conflated two things. You don't have to give up free speech because you get adopted by a political party. So he's still utilizing his right to free speech. And they're saying some of the stuff that he says we agree with. And this is different from what Lucas is doing because Lucas is against a guy like James Carville. So it doesn't make any sense why you would pick and choose.
Don't put words in my mouth.
When you want to go with this guy who's
James
against
Carville.
Trump.
I do not always
now
agree
you respect
with
him.
Yes, I never said any.
And I don't think Lucas is a voice of the MAGA party. He tends to disagree with Trump on things.
No. That's not true.
He
Alex. Loves everything
Because I think Mert is on some medication today because he's really delusional.
He's everything MAGA. Lucas is everything MAGA.
Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer put it bluntly, Mert. He said, talking about Hasan, his voice should have no place in our political discourse, and all elected officials should condemn his rhetoric. That's what I'm talking about. This guy is bad news, and people should not be embracing him. They should be casting aside.
Who should they embrace that's a progressive?
Well, let's start with somebody that loves the country. Okay.
Well, you know what? That was kind of a rhetorical question.
That doesn't wish Americans dead.
Progressive. Listen to what I'm saying.
And that's not an anti-Semite.
So
how's that for starters?
An anti-Semite. And to select a candidate who would serve the progressive movement. You wouldn't be able to do that because you're not a progressive. So you telling the progressives who they can and can't support doesn't make sense. You're the wrong messenger for this because you don't have any good ideas. You're not a progressive. I am just
flagging something that's terrible.
Would not listen to you. So coming from you, you're going to make this guy more popular because they're going to say big time MAGA supporter Mr. Ferrara doesn't like this guy, and it would only strengthen his power because, of course, you're going to go against somebody who supported the Democratic movement because you're against it. So you coming out against it only amplifies his popularity. So you're the wrong messenger. Now, if Mert was on here saying this guy is the end all be all, he's evil, then that would be more effective. But coming from you, who said that Kamala was a horrible person and all this nonsense.
I didn't say she was a horrible person. I said she was a bad candidate.
Exactly, when there was millions of people who disagreed with you. So coming from you, anything attacking the progressive movement isn't effective because you don't support the progressive movement. You're MAGA.
I don't support it when they align with Marxists and communists and socialists. I do not support them one iota. You're right.
Okay, so what you did 10, 15 years ago, we don't have on record. So for the past 3 years we've done this show, that's the only thing we can go on. And for the last, 3 years that I've known you on this show,
I was
you've
never
been
a socialist.
pro
I was never a
MAGA.
Marxist.
That's all we know.
I was never a communist, okay? And just for the record, I was a registered Democrat in New York for many, many decades, okay? So I don't know what you're talking about. I like to talk objectively about what I see as a problem. You are just spewing nonsense.
I'm spewing, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're
nonsense.
spewing too.
You're trying to,
and it's not effective.
You're trying to justify the words of a guy who hates America. And
I'm not dealing with his words. That's you doing that. I'm saying.
Well, you have to deal with his words.
No, I don't. No, I don't. There are millions of people who watch this guy, and they're saying everything that he says, we're going to overlook some of this stuff because we know he means well. People do that all the time. Do it all the time with Trump. He says some off-the-wall stuff, and people say, hey, come on, give him a break. He doesn't really mean that, or he's just having fun. So you cannot pick and choose when you want to give people a break. But you know what? You can, because it makes sense. That's what everybody does.
And Alex, I'd like to hear your opinion. I think the Democrats are committing harry-carry. They're committing suicide because they're aligning themselves with someone who's extreme and at a minimum.
Well, look at this. Plattner was an anti-Semite, but it took a sexual assault allegation for them to disengage with him. I mean, this is where we're at with this Democratic Party.
And this, Mert, is how you lose the middle. This is how you lose independence. This is how you hand.
Since when are you the advisor to the progressive Democratic movement? You are MAGA. Why are we going to take any advice from you? You want us to pick somebody who you like. That doesn't even make sense.
I want the Democrats
we would
to
not
pick
listen
someone
to
that
you in the
loves
first place.
America. Let's have viable, moderate, centrist candidates.
I think he's talking from a point of like, wow, I miss the Democratic Party of old. Am I right, Luke?
The Democratic Party is dead. It's dead. That's the problem.
He doesn't say that, and you're trying to have his back right here. I respect that, but you're not about to rescue him from what I've put him into. He's under arrest right now because he's been convicted. He's been convicted of being MAGA, and you're going to stay with MAGA. I'm not going to let you off the hook.
Doesn't like it. Look, Mert, I get the guy's appeal. The system is frustrating. A lot of people don't feel heard. There's real anger about the wars, about inequality, about the way politics feels rigged, and he channels that anger. I get it. But here's one thing this country doesn't need, right? Voices that traffic in hatred. This is what I'm talking about. Voices that say entire groups of people, Jews, Israeli, landlords, whoever, deserve what's coming to them. Voices that say, I hate this country, like it's a badge of honor. Really?
Well, you shouldn't have let the MAGA movement take place then, because that started it.
Well, we're talking about Hasan, Piker right now, who's talking.
We're not talking about Hasan. We're talking about the climate in America. The climate in America is you got to be extreme to be heard. Being down the middle is not good anymore. You got to be extreme. So he's only adopting what works. We've seen it with the president.
Well, look, we're running out of time. Look, we can do better. We have to do better. You're listening to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas Live. We're honored to have you along with us for the ride. This is episode 108. Coming up after the break, we have a great guest for you. It's Lanny Davis. He's got a new book out, Finding the Third Way. And then hour 2, we've got Dave Rossi, who's going to has a book, Alphas Die Early. So it's a jam-packed show. Don't you dare drift. Don't even blink. Shake It Off with Mert, Alex, and all of us here. Return right after these messages.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-497-9852. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-497-9852. That's 800-497-9852. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to NewmanFerrara.com. That's NewmanFerrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died. Yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
Born on America's darkest day of 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been helping America's heroes ever since. Heroes like United States Army Specialist Anthony Vargas. After the terrorist attacks on 9/11, Anthony's patriotism and love for our country drove him to enlist in the Army. He served honorably and dreamed of one day serving in the NYPD. While on deployment, Anthony was killed instantly when an IED detonated near his unit. He left behind his beloved wife Louisa, their children, and his siblings. Tunnel to Towers honored his memory by paying off the Vargas family's mortgage, giving his family a stable forever home. Help more families like the Vargas family. Your donation today can make a world of difference, bringing hope and security to those who gave everything. Donate $11 a month. Go to T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Okay, my friend, what is the name of that one, Alex?
All right, this is called Chaos by Axel.
How fitting, Alex, or maybe not, because when it comes to talking about politics and the state of our current political climate, it feels less like a warm-up and more like stepping onto a tightrope during a hurricane, and Lanny Davis is exactly the kind of guest who doesn't mind the extreme headwinds. Davis has been at the center of American politics for more than 50 years. A Yale classmate of George W. Bush and Hillary Clinton, He later served as special counsel to President Bill Clinton, earning the nickname the Da Vinci of Spin for his crisis management. In 2005, President George W. Bush appointed him as the only Democrat on the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board. Now, in his new book, Finding the Third Way, Lessons in the Politics of Civility from My Journey Through History, Davis argues that the principled, problem-solving third way championed by Bill Clinton, which was finding common ground between left and right, that's the only path to a functioning democracy. Part memoir, part manifesto, his book is a candid call for civility from a man who's been friends with presidents on both sides of the aisle. It is a pleasure and honor to welcome Lanny Davis to the program. Welcome, Lanny.
Well, I hope I live up to that introduction, but thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Lanny, I've been following you for years, and it's an honor, a true honor, having you on. The first segment, Mert and I were fighting over, before we get to your book, I want to ask your opinion. Mert and I were fighting over Hasan Piker, and I think he's toxic. I think he's dangerous. I think he's a cancer, so to speak. But what is going on with the Democratic Party that's being commandeered by Marxists, socialists, communists? This is not the Democratic Party I know. What is happening, my friend?
Well, first of all, we've had throughout generations, really, but I started in my book commenting on the political base of our party and of the Republican Party is what I call in my book purist politicians or purist politics, meaning it's more important to claim that you're right than to win. And what we now have are people labeling themselves, I don't know what they mean by socialist. The definition of socialism is the government owns everything and there's no private property. Well, Mayor Zamdani claims that he believes in capitalism and private property, so why does he use the word socialist? So this is about labels, and my book is very much opposed to labeling. In the Democratic Party, we were the victims of labels and deserve to lose. And I think the Republican Party now suffers from a real problem in the Trump base that is quite extreme, labeling itself. And so that's my answer to you. Socialism is not the same thing as communism. Communism is a dictatorship. You can have socialism and democracy side by side. Communism is the antithesis of democracy, but it doesn't matter. These are labels, and I'd like to focus on issues and policies.
That's a great point, because you know what I tried to explain this to Mr. Ferrara a few weeks back, that the socialist ideas that Mamdani might support, free bus rides, free health care, that's where the socialist tag is coming from. Those type of ideas are doing the heavy lifting when it comes to the socialism word. But it's really like a distinctive marker, because there are some Democrats out there who would shoot that stuff down and say, hey, we can't have the government paying for that type of stuff. We're going too far. But there's people out there who would like for their tax money to be spent on things that they feel like is necessary. So is that wrong for Democrats to want stuff like that, or is that going too far?
I think it's absolutely debatable, and that's what my book is all about, is the ability to disagree agreeably. If somebody who is a serious socialist, and Mr. Trump knows perfectly well that communism is a dictatorship starting with Stalin all the way to Putin, but socialism is government-owned and no private enterprise. If we want to debate whether socialism works better than private enterprise and private market competition, I'm happy to have that debate. I start by asking Bernie Sanders, when he talks about Medicare for all, who's paying the tab for all of the additional money that has to be raised to pay for Medicare for all? I never heard Bernie Sanders explain who's paying probably $1 trillion it's going to cost to provide Medicare for all. Where does that money come from? And Mayor Zamdani's never explained to me where the money is coming from if we're going to own all the grocery stores. So it's about mathematics, and that's a reasonable debate. But the labeling is what, as I said in my opening, my book is about getting down to specific policy differences, and let's have a reasonable disagreement and a good debate.
So let me ask you a question. Hold on, let me ask you a question, and maybe you can educate me. What would you say that Donald Trump truly is? Let's strip away all the biases. What would you say someone like Donald Trump truly is if you just analyzed what he supports in his policies and stuff like that? What would you characterize him as?
Well, look, if you don't mind me making a caveat, which is a condition to my direct answer to your question, which is to exclude my personal opinion. That's all it is.
That's what I'm asking. Yep.
About his lack of character, his lack of values, and his inability to know the difference between what is true and what is false. If you let me set my parameters about Mr. Trump on a personal level and the way he conducts himself, I think ideologically and on policies, he's right many of the times. He comes across as I would call him a moderate, to use a label, maybe even a liberal. He certainly was pro-choice. On many things, he sounded more like a Democrat than a Republican. On other things, when it comes to business, he's more conservative. One thing I will tell you is that he's a radical liberal when it comes to deficit spending. I mean, he puts Democrats who believe in building deficits and not paying as we go to shame. He's added to the national debt by $1 trillion, that's with a T, dollars, and he's used a credit card to pay for all the tax cuts. And then I've said for a long time, I don't see anything liberal about deficit spending. What would Mr. Trump say if he went around the world with a credit card, first-class airfare, first-class hotels, first-class dining? That's what Mr. Trump likely would do because he is accustomed to traveling first class. But suppose he used a credit card, came home, and dumped all the receipts on the bed of his two sons and said, "You pay for all this." That's what deficit spending is. That's what Democrats have done. They're wrong. That's what Republicans under Trump, they're wrong. If we don't pay as we go, there's nothing liberal about turning our spending receipts on our credit cards over to our children or our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren. So you get my point. Mr. Clinton balanced a budget. He inherited billions of dollars of deficits. He left office with a surplus meaning down with the national debt. Sounds pretty conservative to me. So that's one of the reasons that in the third way I say let's take a look at Mr. Clinton's fiscal conservatism, balanced budgets, and with a surplus. And I give the Republicans in Congress a lot of credit for working with Clinton to balance the budget and leave us with a surplus. And that's one of my messages in the book.
Hey, Lanny, we have a couple of minutes before we have to take a commercial break. But your book, you talk about your early conversations with Bill Clinton at Yale and when he first used the words, the third way. Now, what exactly did he mean? If you could just tell us in a couple of minutes.
Thank you for asking that question, because it was one of my first conversations when my friend from law school, Hillary Rodham, before she changed her last name, introduced me to Bill Clinton. And we talked politics, and I knew he was interested in politics in Arkansas, and I asked him about the polarization going on in the country at that time. It was over Vietnam. And he said, in Arkansas, when we talk politics, we don't talk left, we don't talk right, we find a third way and common ground. And it struck me, because he was a young guy at that point. This guy's going places if he really believes that, because that made a lot of sense to me.
So would you characterize that as more centrist, Lanny?
Well, I think it is centrist or moderate, but it's a mixture of liberal principles and conservative principles, depending upon what you're talking about. So it's not a mushy center. He's very liberal on Social Security, on Medicare, Medicaid, and the federal government helping people. as Franklin Roosevelt defined liberalism.
Hey, Lanny, we have to take a break. I'm sorry. We'll be back.
Okay.
Lanny will join us after this commercial break. Visit his website, LannyJDavis.com, and you'll find his book, Finding the Third Way, on Amazon and wherever books are sold. We'll also have the links on our website, ShakeItOffLive.com. When he comes back, expect the conversation to sharpen, the history to deepen, and the call for common ground to get a whole lot louder.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to NewmanFerrara.com. That's NewmanFerrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate. Hey, Joe Piscopo, I want to tell you about gold, silver, and Landmark Capital. Over the past 2 years, gold and silver have outperformed all the major stock indexes. That's why a lot of people are rolling over their 401ks, IRA, and the physical gold and silver to take advantage of the protection of performance. And our friends at Landmark Capital can help you do this. Now is the time to move. They make it simple. You'll be educated on the different precious metal markets so you can choose what markets are best for you. That'll put you in the driver's seat, and your retirement will be safe, diversified, and growing. Give Landmark Capital a call, 844-604-2575, 844-604-2575. And when you do that, you could have a free, no-obligation strategy call with Mr. David Fisher, the CEO of Landmark Capital, and his team, 844-604-2575, 844-604-2575, or go online to landmarkgold.com. That's landmarkgold.com.
It's Dr. Lederman with Jim.
I was given 6 months to live. It appears that I'm going to be living a lot longer.
They found pancreas cancer.
Yes.
The doctors sent you to chemo and surgeons. They told you had 6 months to live.
I decided not to.
Jim chose radiosurgery with Dr. Lederman.
It sounded very logical, what you were saying. I decided to try it.
Did you suffer?
I did not.
So your PET scan showed a mass in the pancreas. Your CA19, the marker for pancreas cancer, was very elevated. CEA, cancer marker, was elevated. Your first PET scan.
Cancer-free.
So the cancer went away.
Yes, which was very surprising to me.
And your CEA went down to normal range. And your CA19 went way down. 3 separate tests, all showing that you're in remission.
Feels absolutely wonderful.
In your 85 years, how does this rank?
It's number one.
For innovative cancer treatment, call Dr. Lederman, 212 Choices, 212 Choices.
Unity Bank is dedicated to community-oriented banking and offers a full range of services, including business and personal accounts, business loans, and mortgages. Unity has locations throughout New Jersey and in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, expanding its footprint to 21 retail locations. If you're a small business owner, you know how frustrating it is to be a nobody at the big banks. You should be banking at a community bank like Unity. You can have a personal relationship with the president and CEO, my good friend Jim Hughes. Jim asks that you call him directly at 908-713-4306, 908-713-4306, or send an email to james.hughes, Hughes, at unitybank.com, and Jim will get right back to you. You can't get this type of service at the big banks. Visit unitybank.com. FDIC insured, equal opportunity employer, and equal housing lender. Unity Bank, growing with you.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
We are back with Lanny Davis, legendary political advisor, former special counsel to President Bill Clinton, and author of Finding the Third Way, Lessons in the Politics of Civility from My Journey Through History. From Yale friendships with future presidents, to defending the Clinton White House, to serving on a bipartisan board under President Bush, few people have lived closer to the center of power, and fewer still are making such a clear-eyed case for restoring civility. For more information about Lanny, visit his website, Lanny, Lanny, jdavis.com, LannyJDavis.com. Finding the Third Way is available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. And, of course, all the links are on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Lanny, let's pick it up where we left off. So let me ask you an obvious question or a stupid question. How do we find that third way if we're talking over each other?
Well, I start with my own party, and the Republicans have their own problems and difficulties between Mr. Trump and his party, and that is very normal. In my side of the aisle, I would say to my fellow Democrats, number one, stop labeling yourself. I would say that with respect to Mayor Zamdani, as well as the candidate in Michigan and elsewhere who are calling themselves socialists. Tell me what you stand for. Tell me what your positions are. But that's number one. And then number two, besides the labeling problem that both parties have, there's a side to both parties, certainly Mr. Trump is facing it now, that requires 100% purity. If you don't agree with me 100%, then you're my enemy, and I'll attack you personally. And it happens on our side, on what I would call our base, our most liberal or left base. It certainly happens on the Republican side when it comes to supporters of Mr. Trump who call themselves MAGA voters. Again, labeling. Don't know what their positions are, but that is a problem on both sides.
Well, let me ask you, is there a recent political figure or moment that gave you hope that the third way might still have a chance?
For sure. And that is Andy Beshear in Kentucky. And following the heritage of a close friend of mine who I wrote about in a separate chapter in my book, Joe Lieberman of Connecticut, former United States Senator, the late Joe Lieberman, my best friend and godfather of my son. Those are two emblems. Right now we have a governor in Kentucky in a state that Donald Trump carried by double digits. He's a Democrat. He's Andy Beshear. Keep watch over not just himself as a potential presidential candidate, I hope he runs, but just to see how he handles issues. How does he win over so many Trump voters when he's really, I'm going to use the word liberal because somebody decided progressive is a better word than liberal, but I'll use the word liberal Democrat. But Andy Beshear is, on all the social program issues, I would call him a liberal, moderate Democrat, and he is a winner to me because he's able to win Trump voters.
Now, you write that the decline of civility accelerated in the Trump era. So what specific moment or trends convinced you that the country had reached a tipping point?
Well, I don't want to sound as if I'm opposed to Mr. Trump on everything, because there are some positions that he's taken that I agree with him on. But his behavior led to the polarization, and 1/6 would be my quick answer to your question. How in God's name could he not recognize what the late Lindsey Graham and most members of Congress recognized when they thought their lives were in danger, when a violent mob crashed into the Capitol, and some of those individuals pled guilty, and some of them were attacking the Capitol Police. Yet Mr. Trump agrees that they should be pardoned even if they pled guilty. So that's an example where I think Mr. Trump loses touch with sensible explanations of policies. And that's just one area that I disagree with Mr. Trump on.
Well, let me ask you this before Mert chimes in. How can liberals connect with Trump Democrats without abandoning their core principles?
Well, we have to find common ground and agree to disagree where we have disagreement. We certainly have a lot of disagreement on 1/6 with a large part of the Trump base that calls themselves MAGA. They defend what happened on 1/6, and they still decline to say that President Biden won the election. So there's serious disagreements with the base of Mr. Trump's voters. But ask them how they feel about the Iran non-war. According to Mr. Trump, he won't call it a war. I think you'll find many Democrats and many Trump voters agree that the Iran war makes no sense and has been very costly in money as well as in our loss of lives. Another thing that I'm very interested in is that Trump voters and conservative Republicans normally favor states' rights over a big federal government. That, to me, is the classic difference between FDR liberals like myself, who put a lot of power in Washington at the expense of the states. Well, maybe it's time to go back to states' rights and read the Constitution that says local elections are governed by states. There should be no federal presence in any local election place. That's what the Constitution says. That's what conservatives have said ever since FDR drew a lot of power into Washington. Now, what do you think is going to be said when Mr. Trump thinks about sending ICE in to try to change the 2026 midterms? Will it be about states' rights and conservatism, or will they suddenly say it's okay to send federal officials into local polling places, apart from it being contrary to a specific constitutional provision that relegates local elections to the states? So that's the kind of thing I would love to just tweak my friends who are for Donald Trump, and I have friends who voted for Trump, and say, hey, let's at least agree that Trump sending in any federal officials, as I believe he's contemplating, is contrary to states' rights, contrary to the Constitution that says you can't do that.
Hey, Lanny, before Mert chimes in, our producer-engineer, Alex Garrett, would like to chime in. Go ahead, Alex.
Firstly, the Clinton era, what can you tell us about the civility between Clinton and Speaker Newt Gingrich? I mean, I feel like they're an example of, yes, both sides can get along.
Great question. In public, they were at odds. They were often very personal in explaining how much they disliked each other. And there was some personal dislike. I'm a witness to that. But there was also the untold story. That balanced budget and surplus, words that we're not using anymore, was because Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton sat down and said, okay, we may not like each other, but we both agree we shouldn't use credit cards and dump the receipts on the beds of our children and say pay for them. So they agreed on fiscal responsibility. Of course, Bill Clinton was a governor. He had to balance the budget. When you're president, you can print money, which is what Mr. Trump is doing. So there's an example where they agreed, even though they didn't like each other very much. And I give Mr. Gingrich and conservatives like Joe Scarborough went on to other things on TV. At the time, it was Scarborough, Gingrich, and the Republican Tea Party conservatives in the House who helped Bill Clinton balance that budget.
You know what? I find you to be one of the most interesting guests we've had on because of the way you approach politics. Let me ask you this.
Thank you.
I feel like as a whole, the country has gotten progressive. You know, I think a lot more Republicans accept things like gay marriage and all that stuff that used to be very divisive. So, in a sense, the question I would like you to answer right now is just how different or similar are both sides? Like, because I have a feeling that we become where it is a battle of personalities versus I agree with this issue and you don't. How accurate of a statement would that be? Because I think both sides, there's a lot that we agree on in a sense that if Donald Trump would have came out as a Democrat, he probably could have won if he would have shifted, certain aspects of how he approached certain topics. So what is your thoughts on that?
Well, on issues, I do agree that Trump is more moderate and even liberal on a lot of issues, like the choice issue, where he's never been in favor of preventing women from having abortions, although he supported some policies as president to placate a part of his base that is very anti-abortion. But look, my differences with Mr. Trump and most Democrats differing with him are mostly about values and the difference between telling the truth and not telling the truth. It's more personal than it is on on issues. I think you're very insightful to point out that Trump is pretty moderate and even liberal on some issues when you put those labels on him. But it's the way he conducts himself. A bad example for our children in not knowing the difference between the truth and something that's untruthful.
But to get away from Trump, the profile of the American, would you say that they could go either way, or would you say there are people out there who are still like Republicans and they have specific issues that make them that, or is it a battle of personalities in a lot of people's minds about which side they're going to lean on?
Well, first of all, I have a quick analogy for you. Politics in this country, whether it's today or in our history. Think of a football field and look at the 20-yard line to the goalpost on both sides of the football field. Those are voters that aren't talking to each other, and they're never going to change their minds. Now you have, 60 yards on the football field left, and that's where the elections are decided. And in fact, between the 40-yard lines on both sides of the field, which is the 20-yard line, 20% of the electorate, are really where elections are decided. We call them swing voters. So we have a lot of consensus in this country, if you look at it, as 80 yards of the football field, and the last 10 yards on both sides are people who are pretty extreme.
Now, I asked that because doesn't it make what you're suggesting, we should be more civil and all this, doesn't it make it difficult for that to occur? Because how do you stand out if we pretty much have a consensus on a lot of issues? Don't you have to go to the extremes?
I think there's a way of saying this, but I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to people because I'm not so great.
Go ahead and preach. We don't care. Preach if you want to.
When my children are criticizing me, I'm not always great in ignoring the criticism, but I think there's a quick answer. It's the way you use words that will allow us to find civility in politics. If you start out your sentence when you're having a political discussion with the word you, it's over, because you're attacking the other person with the word you. If you start out your sentence by saying, I disagree, then the other person isn't being attacked. The other person can say, okay, I disagree. Tell me why you disagree. And then my second sentence is, well, what do we have in common? And I do think Trump voters and I have in common a opposition to Iran and a balanced budget. So that's the dialogue. The way to speak to people is the approach that I'm a little bit here.
How do you make that entertaining, though? It's like it's very difficult to be peaceful and
it's
be
boring,
entertaining.
Right?
Yeah. So
well,
that's a challenge.
That is the problem. The loudest voice and the most extreme, outrageous adjectives and adverbs will get people's attention.
Hey, Lonnie, we only have a minute. What do you hope readers carry with them after they finish Finding the Third Way, your latest book? What do you hope they take away?
Please, everybody, if you disagree with me, that's fine. Let's debate the disagreement. But avoid the personal accusations, and that's what I would like to leave your listeners with. Whether you're left or right, conservative or liberal, rather than progressive, I use the word liberal because I'm of a generation where I was called a liberal. But the point is to your audience, anybody who's a Trump voter, tell me where we can agree, such as the Iran war. I know you're not in favor of the Iran war because that's not America first, but we'll also disagree on 1/6 and maybe the election of Joe Biden in 2020, who knows. But I think that we can talk by using words like I agree and disagree rather than making you accusations.
You know what, Lanny? I agree. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. For more information about Lanny Davis and his work, visit LannyJDavis.com. That's LANNYJDavis.com. You'll find Finding the Third Way on Amazon and wherever books are sold. And we'll also have links posted on our website, ShakeItOffLive.com. Lanny, as I said before, it was a pleasure and honor. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
I appreciate your kind words, and both of you have me back, and let's keep discussing. And
we would love to have you back. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. Next up, Dave Rossi. He's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. He's a best-selling author of the new book, Alphas Die Early. So you got to hear about that. It's imperative you come back after the news at the top of the hour, suffer through a few commercial messages. But once that's done, Mert, Alex, and I, along with the rest of the AM 970 team, will be waiting right here for you. We know you want it. We know you do. We want to shake it off with us. So come back for hour 2. Dave Rossi joins us after the commercial break, and when we return, expect the conversation to sharpen, the honesty to deepen, and your inner alpha to start questioning everything.
The preceding hour of programming, sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.